welcome to Soul Hacks and welcome to my next episode. Today's episode will be about coming home or going home and the feeling before, the feeling when you are at home, the feeling after, everything, because that is a big thing for everyone that traveled. Everybody perceives it differently depending on their story, their circumstances. All depends. Like nothing is linear. What I talk about today are my experiences and my perception and how I felt and what I went through. I actually don't believe that it will be a short episode because I just wrote down some of my texts I posted on Instagram. Let's jump into it. Okay, so I will start still in New Zealand because, as I mentioned in the last episodes, after New Zealand, I was actually ready to go home. And not because I wanted to or I had something to look forward to. It was just the simple feeling of wanting a base and not feeling the pressure of building up a whole life in a month, which is the case every time you go to a place where you try to find a job, you find housing. You have to build up a whole life, basically, on, and that is really exhausting at some point. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder, but what I was ready for after New Zealand was just to have a break, to have a safe base without feeling the pressure that I had to do something, which wasn't also necessarily the case overseas, but it comes with a different setting and a different meaning and a different feeling in general. But before we will start, I will read one of my texts I wrote down for this episode. It describes basically the feeling of imagining how it will be and still being overseas, but kind of looking forward going home, but also not wanting to leave your home, your life you lived for the past months, years. It was hard because you feel so many things at the same time and it's hard to find the right words for it. And obviously, I shortened a few of my texts that it won't be too long. If you want to read the whole text, it's all in my Instagram highlights on my travel account. In the end, I imagined more and more the reunion, how euphoric it was. It gave me so much love. I thought about how the reunion would be, yet sometimes I don't want to imagine it. I don't want to go back. Somehow, I just want to have a base. I don't want to leave the life I'm living, my life, giving up what I love so much, my freedom. I want to live to feel free, not to be confronted by societal pressure, topics, conversations. I want to lay in the grass and stare at the sky. Yeah, so that were some of my thoughts I put into a text when I was in my last week in New Zealand. Yeah, because it felt like a whole chapter is closing and I'm going back. I didn't expect it much. I didn't expect it anything at all, actually, which is one of my life sentences. I made it a whole secret that I will go back or when I will fly back because it was my sister's bachelorette party in Cologne. And I arrived in Frankfurt, so it was closer to Cologne than home. No one should know. I wanted to surprise my sister first, obviously, from the airport to the bachelorette party. And then after, I wanted to surprise my friends I made in Australia and New Zealand. I wanted to visit them. So I had to keep everything a secret. I loved everything about it. It was painful and it was a lot of planning, especially with my Instagram, with the stories and everything, and the time difference as well. But yeah. I love it so much. My favorite one was really fancy. Oh my god. Why am I crying? If you listen to the last episode about how I feel right now, it is obviously still the case. So I'm just going through it. So sometimes I'm a bit more down, more emotional. I actually don't know how I would describe how I feel today. It's just a neutral day, I think. But yeah, that was really my favorite part for sure. After leaving Cologne, my parents knew that I was coming. I don't know if that's necessarily to mention, but the only person that lives back home is my dad. My mum lives in Bosnia because she's from there. She came to Germany as a refugee when the war happened, but like she's visiting every couple of months. My sister lives in Namibia, so everyone is like in their own lives basically. When I took the train back home, everyone was at home. My parents knew that they were the only people that knew, and they picked me up from the train station, which was nice because that's a really wholesome feeling, and I appreciate this feeling so much. Doesn't matter where I'm going to, but just having someone that waits for you and like helps you, that means a lot to me. But yeah, they picked me up and I basically moved back in our old home. I walked in and it was so weird. That is definitely a thing I have to mention. It is and was really hard to move back in, especially with everyone being there at the same time, which obviously is rarely the case. It was a big thing. Me coming back home after living my own life, independent, free, and having everyone at home at the same time. It is too much. I say how it is. It is, and it was too much because it was just like so overstimulating. I needed my time to compromise to where I am with like the personality I became, plus my mum holding on to the version I was before. It was quite challenging. Like, it was hard. We had some discussions, we had some conversations. It is a completely new way of communicating with each other, finding a way with each other. It is not only hard for us, it's also hard for our parents. They let you leave as a kid, but you come back as an adult. That's a realization that hits them. Same, the way they can't expect you to be the person or the version you were before you left, you also can't expect them to be completely fine with who you became. So both sides need their time, maybe some distance as well, communication. I realized that as soon as I moved back, I spent a lot of time in my room just because I knew I'm not ready to handle the situation and I don't want it to hurt anyone. But even that was hard for my mum and she felt hurt. Obviously, I didn't spend time only in my room, but I was so much in my bubble of adjusting, and I hurt her feelings in the way I tried to adjust for myself. Not necessarily that will be the case with everyone, but I think that's a good example of being empathetic for both sides. And both sides need to understand. Both sides need to take time and space. But that's the thing, sometimes it's hard with our parents because they're not that easy with understanding new things. And it's way easier for us, which obviously doesn't mean that it is easy for us. Definitely not. We're so much more adjustable. Every situation, every story, every interaction will be unique in its own. That's a topic. It's important. It's important as well, even that I'm not that close to my own family. It is close to my heart to mention it because it's still your family and you can't choose your family. But you also don't want the whole family thing bother you too much. Bother you is maybe the wrong word, but like, yeah. In the first 2 weeks, I visited and surprised all my friends I met during my year in Australia and my year in New Zealand. So I think that was a nice balance between realizing that you're back home, but also keeping like the travel aspect alive a bit, but in your own country. So it's kind of like adjusting. That was a good solution for me personally, because I could like slowly start adjusting and realizing, okay, I'm at home now. And after I visited all my friends, I started to actually arrive. Like, obviously I unpacked already, but like actually trying to find a new system, a new routine, what I'm gonna do with my time now, you know, all that, and like organizing and sorting, insurance, everything, what can be named, everything basically, which is also very time consuming. And after I made a plan what I have to do with like insurance and here and there and documents and stuff, I also had the time to like meet up with the people from back home. So I started doing this as well. And that was really challenging in itself as well, because the people keep asking you how it was as you've been on vacation. And that's the thing, you weren't on vacation. That was your life. They ask you because they think what they know, and they don't know any better. I told them, well, I wasn't on vacation, that was my life. You try to explain it to them, but there's a huge hole already in the conversation that is missing, like the understanding of your life. If you explain it to them, some are like more open and they want to understand and see and like listen to you, and you motivate them and you inspire them, and they're happy that you're back. And with some people, with some friends, the conversations are not the one you used to have or supposed to have. You have conversations with some friends and you go home after catching up with them thinking, what was that? You don't gain anything from this conversation anymore at all. You lived a normal life, but this normal life was so much more fulfilling, and you start missing people that are open, that are curious about life, that want to experience, that want to fail, that want to understand. You miss people that understand you and you feel connected to, but you barely can find that back home in your old surrounding, and that makes you feel lonely sometimes. And after I got back from visiting my friends, as I mentioned, I started doing the admin with insurance and documents and everything. I had a time slot until when I could do it, because we were about to go to Africa for my sister's wedding. Even that I had my stuff to do, I had a lot of free time as well. And this free time was very hard to put into words. It's a really weird feeling, but at some point it came to me to like being able to put it into words. And I posted that on Instagram as well, and I will just read the text as well. Every time when I close my eyes now or stare into the sky, it feels like a dream that I lived for the past 2 years. I feel the freedom, the carefreeness, even along all the struggles while traveling. I feel how I'm running on the beach, dancing in the rain, and feeling infinity and peace in the ocean. Here, it's like searching for meaning again. I notice more and more how I am not, how often I close my eyes, take deep breaths, because my breath often gets stuck in my chest. I don't eat much, have problems to fall asleep and wake up at night. I thought I needed time to settle in, but maybe I don't want that at all. Every morning is the same. It feels like being stuck in a time loop. Traveling teaches you to live with little and to appreciate the simplest things. In return, you experience life to the fullest, with all your senses. You're overstimulated 24/7. The state becomes normal. Maybe that's why being back home feels like withdrawal. The past highlights are now like picking up the mail. How sad. Why do we experience it this way when we appreciate the little things? They're two different lives. You no longer fit in, and it feels so strange. No, it's not just strange. It's unfamiliar. And even though the unfamiliar can become familiar, the train hasn't left here. You just don't get on. I feel emotionally numb here, more and more often, and I recharge in nature, alone, with music in my thoughts. Where has the meaning of life gone? So yeah, there were like a few texts I put together, like a few separate texts I posted when I got back, and I just like put it in one text basically. But that might be really depressing, but that was how I felt being back. Yeah, that's how it felt. And I'm glad that I found words to describe it. After obviously that realization and having a bit of like down days and trying to adjust, I tried to find some meanings in my time being back home. I turned everything around. That's what I do after a down. I find motivation, I start projects, I try to fill my time with lovely things. I started sorting my pictures, and believe me or not, it took me 3 months of doing so. Pictures, videos from the last 2 years, and every time I have something on my to-do list, something like that, I make sure that it is completely done, that I can tick it off. I documented it for my friends, not on Instagram. I think that's when I took a break from Instagram, because I was like, I want to focus on one thing, and that is important to me, and I will do this and nothing else. And I think I did it like every single day, at least for 6 hours for 3 months. That is insane if you think about how much time was that. That was so time consuming, but honestly, I'm like, that was worth my time, in my opinion, because I really wanted to have that. I really wanted to sort that, and I did it. And like, I remember updating my friends, and I think by the end of like the last month, I was like, okay, I think I will be ready by next week. I think I said that every single week, and then I was like, oh wait, go through again. So yeah, that was quite funny, because like, yeah, it kept me busy for sure. After I sorted my pictures, I, as I mentioned, tried to fill my time back home with meaning, and I found things I really wanted to do. So I started working at my local alpaca farm again. That is a great job, honestly. It just calms you down every time you arrive there. I love them so much, honestly. I used to work there before I went to Australia. I also volunteered in social places with disabled people. I always wanted to do that. I always wanted to give back, and I was always curious about how they perceive life, because I think we can learn a lot from those people. They are so much more appreciative of like the small things, the tiniest things, even in a conversation. And also like with love, for example, there's so many people, they don't have the social skills we have, and it just makes me really sad thinking about how some people act, in not only in terms of love or communication, also in connection, like how poorly we communicate, even that we have the social skills. But that's another topic. Yeah, as I said, I just like filled my time with wholesome things to do, and I volunteered on the festival as well, met some new people, and all in all, I know it is not my place to be, but I realized also that I could be happy there, but it would be so much more effort, and I know that I don't belong there, I don't fit in there, and I also don't want to. That's another thing. Even that I had many realizations, more negative than positive. I never thought that this will be possible. I left my hometown with a full heart. Even that it is not my place, it's not that bad, at least for a visit. As soon as I got back into the country, basically, and still documenting my journey, what I go through, what I do, I quickly realized something, and that's another text I want to read to you. Since I've been back, there's one feeling I could recognize again the quickest: how things, especially oneself, comes across in other people's eyes. Or to say it better, how one presents oneself. Because you're at home, an environment where you could be judged. Why do we want to present an image of ourselves, not only on social media, that may be aesthetic, but doesn't necessarily reflect who we are? Because we too often let others rethink our actions, decide about our lives, who aren't even a part of our lives. It's not about where you are, it's about how willing you are to step out of your comfort zone, to show vulnerability. Let the opinions of others doesn't bother you, and being your truly self. I think there's not much to talk about this text. It was just an observation and something I wanted to say out loud. One catch up with one of my friends happened to be towards the end of my time back home in Germany. What I took from there was that if you come back, you realize that if you want to stay the person you became, that this takes a lot of strength and a lot of energy, because it's easy to fall back into old patterns and old surroundings and in your old life because you're surrounded by it. And people keep keep saying to you, oh, you changed so much. Everyone around you thinks to know you. To just fall back into old patterns is easier, more comfortable, because you don't have to explain it to people. Because the truth is, if you stay who you became, you realize that you don't fit in anymore. That is a feeling most people feel uncomfortable with. But that's one feeling I grew up with. You feel that it is not your place anymore. And if you stay who you became and who you truly are, you see that this life is not for you anymore, because you've seen so much more. You know what is waiting for you. It's more challenging to be in that surrounding than leaving again. I believe going back home is so important. It is such an important part of discovering who you are and where you want to go, how you want to live your life and where you want to live your life. And you don't necessarily need an answer. I think it's a step if you at least know what you don't want. It is important to me to mention that I also have friends that went overseas, went on their travels to be happily go back home because they have their people there, they have their life there, and it is not bad at all to go back and to enjoy your life back home. Just because it was my experience, it always depends on the person, the story, the setting, the travels, everything. Just because you can have a negative experience doesn't mean that you won't have a good experience. It is not the case for everybody. So even if it won't be great, you will get something out of it. You will grow and you will learn. And even if you go back and you fall back in old patterns, nothing is right or wrong. The only thing that matters is how you feel. If you feel comfortable in going back into your old patterns, then there's nothing wrong about it. You don't have to explain yourself. It's another example of how different people's stories are, how different our lives are. And as I mentioned, I have people that went back home and they're really happy at home. They were happy overseas, but they're also very happy at home. And there's nothing wrong about it. They went home to the old life, to a new life, but an old setting, and they feel at home, which is great. I'm still trying to find a place I can call home, because that's the one reason I left. I have my home within, but also that is not always great, and it's also challenging sometimes, and sometimes you just need a break from your own life within to just keep it somewhere at someone's place, someone's shoulders. I think if you break it down, people are excited to start new chapters after traveling or after coming home. There are new chapters everywhere, every day. I hope I see you in the next episode.